welcome back to another Fabulous from channel. I'm Jay from Jay Books Corner, and today we are talking, you guessed it, maybe you didn't, that's my 5-book series is what we're talking about today. That is, this month I chose 5 books people I love. You'll find out as we go through it which books people I love. I'll shout them out and things, I'll tell you who they are. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk through the books. And I'll give you a brief thing, and then there will be chapter 10s linked down below in case there's a certain book you're like, oh my god, what's your opinion about that? I'll also tell you on a rating of like how excited I am for them as well. So these are books that people I like absolutely adore. So first one being Hedi. I'm not looking forward to this, only for the simple fact that I'm not a big classics fan. I have nothing against classics, it's just not my favorite genre, my favorite moment, my favorite thing. But we have Hedi, which I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. And then we have No Child of Mine, Suzanne something, I'm not sure. I am very curious about this one in particular. I do know it's pretty hard to read, and I do know it's book 1 in a series or a trilogy, so maybe we'll read the other ones, I don't know. Then we have Fabel. I don't know who wrote this either. I'm actually really curious about this one. I was told they're super quick to read, which is great. They're all really short and really quick to read by the recommender. Then we have November 9 by Colleen Hoover, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know my opinions about. Me and Colleen Hoover has since broken up, as you guys do know. She has wronged me one too many times. But we are back again because someone I know who I absolutely adores this book. They actually picked Ugly Love, which I already read. And they also picked It Ends With Us, which I already read. So we are here with November 9. So it was not the first choice. Definitely wouldn't have been on my list to read. I'll tell you this much, I'm pretty sure I know the twists for November 9, so we'll see how it goes. And then lastly, we have Evil Geniuses by Catherine Jinks. This is book 1 of I don't know how many, and I'm super curious to see how it's gonna go. I have lots of, we'll just see how it goes. I'm gonna go ahead and get you guys ready, and you guys can enjoy the vlog. So there are chapter 10s linked down below in case you guys want to see one. Normally when I vlog books, by the way, I normally do you guys 25, 50, 75, 100% check-ins, which I'm supposed to the final outro or whatever. If the book is extremely spoiler heavy and things, or like there's too much going on that I can't really talk about in non-spoiler fashion, I'll give like 1 or 2 updates, not all of them. Some of them, sometimes I read them so fast that I don't give an update at all. I have told myself I am modded DNF if I need to in this video. Don't like doing that, so I don't feel like I will, but if I need to. And if there are any spoilers, the screen will turn this color unless I tell you in the beginning, like the first 25% clips, that this entire section is a spoilerly filled vlog for this book or whatever. Because I'm sure like November 9, I'll probably want to talk spoilers for. It's just my best guess. But I'm hoping that it's only like 1 section of it. I don't really know though. So we'll see. So just give me a heads up. Alright, let's go ahead and jump to the vlog. The first book we're going to be talking about this time around, as you guys can tell, is Evil Genius. Let me very quickly tell me who loves this book that I know. My fiance. I'm gonna link a video actually in the cards of us building him in The Sims in case you guys want to see what he looks like and stuff. But this is one of his favorite books from childhood. He had a few. I'd read most of them. The Vladimir Todd series, which is so weird because I don't think anybody else read Vladimir Todd except me. And so I met someone who did. Dark to Freak, which I also read. I read almost all that author's books when I was in middle school as well. And then also the like it was like a Vampires, which I couldn't get my hands on, and then the other one which I just learned, which was the Lemony Snicket's ones, which I've never read before. I think I'd probably have chosen that one over this. But either way, we are here talking about Evil Genius by Catherine Jinks. Evil Genius just follows a boy from the time he's very little. We're slowly seeing him age up. He's like 14 by the halfway mark, which is what we're talking about. I have a 50% check-in for you, and then I'll come in with a final update. There's no spoilers. I don't really have any spoilers to say. I don't know what the synopsis says on the back. Okay, there is no synopsis on the back. So I'm not entirely sure what the synopsis tells you, is what I'm trying to say here. It is about Sidel Pigot's parents thought he was brilliant and dangerous. Therapists thought he could rule the world. They were right, which I think is a pretty good way to put this. Sidel is this is a bit of a spoiler, but I don't think it's that big of a spoiler, is the son of an evil genius who ends up in prison. He ends up being a smart person, like a super highly intelligent. He ends up testing out of school really early in his career and stuff, but he's not like using computers. And it's about his time at a school for evil geniuses of like, and things along those lines. I very much understood why this is one of my fiance's favorite books. He loves a villain story. He loves a school about villains, and this is very much what that is. I recommend it to people who do think that. And there's some storylines in here that I personally don't enjoy. He ends up meeting a girl somehow in that relationship I find to be very very wrong. And then there's also some other things of like dressing up and abuse and things I also don't think really age as well. This book is from, it looks like 2007, which, you know, makes sense. But that being said, I'm still very much enjoying my experience, and I'll let you guys know when it comes out to be. It's looking like a 3.5 to a 4, just because I'm having a really hard time figuring out where the story is completely headed, and so I'm excited. It's giving me vibes for Renegade, so if you like that, it's kind of under the same lines of those. That's more directly superheroes, where this is more directly villains, but I also didn't like really the first half of Renegades for that book, and then I absolutely love the sequels and the second half, so maybe that'll be the case for Evil Genius. It's definitely keeping my attention. I can read a lot of it at once, so it's definitely a very fast-paced book. I'll update you when I finish it later on today. Did I ever come in and finish my last update for Evil? I gave it a 4. I'm pretty sure we closed this one. I'm pretty sure we did. We have Heidi to talk about. Heidi was my mom's choice. She's been wanting me to read Heidi for years now. I'm going to say we're going on 6 or 7 years this is recommended. And I'm happy I finally read it. I finally did it. I read it in one sitting. Part of the reason I didn't update you is because things happened, but nothing important happened. It just follows a poor girl who actually doesn't have that bad of a life, who just seems to have a really shitty life. It's hard to explain. She's like 4 or 5 when we meet her in the beginning. She ends up getting tossed off to her grandpa, who everybody said was going to be absolutely horrible to her, and he ends up being pretty good. And then she ends up being shipped around because everybody thinks that they know what's best for her, but in reality all she wants is her grandpa, which is kind of cute. And so we go down this like whole journey with her, and I just was really bored. I mean, that's what this type of classic literature is. Little Women, that type of thing. Nothing's happening for so many pages at end, and then something really brief will happen, but it'll be resolved 2 seconds later to keep you like enthralled. Objectively, there's nothing wrong with this book. I would still probably recommend this book out of some classics I read in the past like 10 years or so. I'd say this one holds up pretty nicely. It doesn't have anything objectively super racist in it that I could pick up on a first listen. Maybe I'm wrong. Also nothing like super misogynistic or sexist. Obviously it deals with a younger child, so we don't have to worry about it just being man this, man mean. I guess there are positives here. I don't know why my mom loves it so much. It must be something that was read to her a lot as a kid. You know, sometimes, like, I have a few of those things. Like, I feel like Clifford's always going to have some pretty happy place in my heart, even if I don't read them anymore. But that's this one. I'll do you on the next one. Hi, I'm going to come here and give you guys the entire update for November 9. I know some of you guys have probably clicked on this video just for me to talk about this book, and I'm just going to spend some time talking about it right here. November 9 by Colleen Hoover was recommended to me by a friend. Every one of the books, her name's Callie, I love her, I love you, don't hate me. Every one of the books that she recommended me was Colleen Hoover. If you guys don't know my relationship with Colleen Hoover, I basically decided I'd read Colleen Hoover's horror novels, or thrillers, or whatever you want to call those things. I don't really know. And then I'd jump over into her romance and read a few of those and try to pick a few of them off. She recommended Valerie, or whatever that one's called. I read that already. She also recommended Ends With Us, because obviously, and I had already read that one as well. So now we are here with November 9. I think the first book I ever heard the name Colleen Hoover under. November 9 is very controversial for the relationship between Fallon and Ben. So the story follows Fallon as it's about a year or two after the events of a fire has taken over her entire life. At this point in the story, she believes her father is the one who started the fire, and it has scarred her body unimaginably. She was asleep upstairs and no one knew, and so she was burned really, really bad inside this fire. And so the story it follows is she's at a restaurant with her dad in the beginning of the book. Her dad is a hard-ass. Everybody hates him, truly so. And then this guy shows up and acts like her boyfriend to save her in a situation. He basically knows everything about her too in a creepy way, but she thinks it's cute. It's fine. This was written in like 2011, so I'll give the stalker vibes, okay? Just because it was such a common trope back then. Luckily enough, as we have progressed, we have moved out of it. Colleen Hoover has not, but we have. I read a few Colleen Hoover books in the future where stalker is a important scenario narrative. I just don't like Colleen Hoover's writing. I think that's what it comes down to. Sure, you could say sometimes she has shocking twists, and sometimes that's why people like it. But I find her characters to be really unlikable and somewhat dumb, and I also find them to always be younger than what they're classified as. Fallon is like 24 or 25 in this book. She's a very well-known actress, which is possible, for sure. And she wants to try her set at Broadway. Her dad is a pig. That's pretty classified. That's okay character. And then we have Ben, the unattachable, like, boyfriend who is both extremely cruel, yet the main character keeps going back to them, even though they're extremely cruel. Ben in this book does some pretty unspeakable things to Fallon, either with her around or without her, and all things are kind of stupid. The concept, however, is pretty cool outside of the relationship, setting this date being like in a year from now, 5 years from now, we're gonna come back, no matter if we're married, in a relationship, whatever it might be, we're gonna come back to the same exact spot and talk about us, and tell us about how we grew up, and if we're not married in 5 years, then maybe we'll try this out. I think it's a really cool concept if it wasn't with people who just know each other for 2 days, but I've seen other books do this better, this concept. I think it's really cool, and so it's definitely not the issue with the story. So, with that being said, though, I just didn't care for it. I'm very sorry for everybody out there who loves November 9. The twist, I did know. I didn't realize I knew it, though, until probably like 10 or... I had guessed something, and I was like, why does it seem so right? And it's because I did know the twist going into the book without knowing it. I read a spoiler review because everybody was talking about how horrible this book is, how we shouldn't support this novel and XYZ or whatever, and I was like, why? Why is this book so bad? And so then I did research into it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I read it, and I was like, oh, okay. So this is a solid 2. There's stuff here to enjoy, but there's also stuff here I really, really hate. So yeah, I have a strong feeling it would probably be a low rating, though. Sorry, Callie. I just don't like this author. Let's move on to the next one. I don't know what's going to be. Hopefully a better book. I love the person, though. I feel so bad. I love the person. We're talking about Fabel, as you guys know by the title card. This one is recommended to me by Michelle. She is a coworker I had at the library who we've stayed in pretty close contact with after my leaving. Good friend. Really good friend. And so I asked her, what book should I read that I have not read before? And she sent me Fable by Adrian Young. I've never heard of this. This is an old YA series. It's an old YA series that has been around for, seems like a long time, or a long-ish time, I should say. And it follows Fable, and that's why it's called Fable. I thought maybe it was based on fables. I don't read synopses, as you guys do know. And I didn't really get to hear anything. I knew it was somewhat of a fantasy type of story was my best guess. I thought it had to deal with fables. I knew they were short, and I knew that they were really fast paced, and then it was a series because she had mentioned for me to read the entire series, and I said maybe. Still don't know yet. I think the character is okay. I'm not fully taken to her yet. I like her angle that she's going at. So the story begins with her in this town that she ends up being raised in, of these people who absolutely hate her, and she almost ends up killing someone, and she leading her to escape. Really begin the tale of her life. And so far the writing is medium. It's fun, it's exciting, it's fast, very engrossing, and so I'm having a good time while reading it. But it's nothing spectacular. It's something, there's no lines in here that I'm like, oh god, I need to read you this or anything like that. It's just like a fun time. It's the best perspective. The characters are somewhat likable. You know, it is on a ship, which I will have to say I have not read. I don't think I've read many ship novels in my life, so that is interesting. I don't think pirates interest me super much, and so knowing that it's on a ship and knowing that predominantly it's going to be on a ship, I don't know how much I'm going to love that, but overall I am enjoying myself, and I'm curious to see where I'm at the 50% check-in, and if I'm like fully invested in the story, and if I have anything to add to the story that I don't think is spoilery, or if it's light spoilers or anything like that, I'll tell you about. I'm enjoying it, and so I'll update you guys when I'm further. The 50% check-in for Fable. I'm not loving it. I'm not hating it. Once again, I'm not the biggest pirate story fan. For some reason, something on a boat just does not interest me. This one is intriguing. The characters are right. The writing is kind of shallow, I guess is the best way I know how to say. There isn't a lot of depth to it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It just means it's very easy to read, and I don't feel like there's only been like a few lines here or there that have got me off guard. Mostly it's just a little basic. And then I also felt like the actual like story is a little too for me, but overall, it's aiming at like a 3.5, which would be pretty good for a first book in a series. As you guys know, I like them as they progress. The opening of the characters is only good for a second round. You have to read the whole thing and then come back and you love the first one. That's how it goes. We did hit the midpoint, and the midpoint did introduce some interesting things that I'm curious to see where it's going to go, because now we basically have figured, like, I thought that where we're at in the midpoint, I thought was going to be like the end of the book. So that does intrigue me, because there's like so much more book to go. I'll let you guys know. I probably won't do a 75% check-in, so I'll meet you guys at the end. Me and Emmy want to come in here and give you guys the final update for Fable. I'm so mixed on this. So the 50% check-in, you guys know that it's kind of leaning on like a 3.5. I think it's bumped up to a 4. I didn't personally really care for the ending. It looks like maybe it's a duology because there's only like a second book out. There's a prequel for one of the characters in the book I don't want to give away that was also written. It's a little bit shorter than the second book. The second book did come out in 2021. And I already put it on my to-read list because I do plan on reading it. I don't know when, but I will finish this eventually. I really liked where it was headed. So essentially a new plot twist or a new plot became very evident once the one thing happened, if you read the book, about the halfway mark. And I thought that's what the whole point of the second book was going to be about. And I was really excited to go on this adventure and, do this thing with all these people. And it actually ended up not really being what this whole entire second book is about. The whole second book is about completely something completely different that I don't really know if I personally care about enough to really be super invested in, but I would recommend. It was a good recommendation. I think I can understand why it was recommended to me. I thought that I would really enjoy it, and that was really fast paced, and overall I thought the writing was okay, and I did enjoy it. I thought the characters by the end really came into their own. I didn't really care for the romance though. I didn't really feel the spark or anything with the characters, so I will say that much. That was a big takeaway, but I think I'm landing on a 4 for Fable. One more book to go, and I'll tell you guys when I start it. Hi, I'm coming in here to update you guys on the final book, which is No Child of Mine. I don't know who this is by. This was a recommendation by my sister. It's her favorite book of all time. So Peyton, just kind of skip this section. I don't like it. There's a lot of reasons. The biggest reason, however, is... Sorry, I'm filming this on a weird angle because I don't want to sit down. The biggest reason I would say that this book is not working for me is the audiobook. I don't have any way to get it physically. My sister doesn't, she lives 80 minutes away. It's not like it's a long distance, but it's not like a short distance. And so I just have no way of reading it physically. I think this book would be 10 times better physically than it is, because the issue being the narrator that they got for the audiobook sounds like someone who would do British classics. And I just read Hedi for this video because, as you guys know, and it kind of sounds like the same voice. And so there's parts of it where I'm it almost feels like a British classic, and then you have these really, really adult scenes involving children that are very they're a lot. And so I'm 50% into it. I think the story's pretty good. If Alex, she's someone who is working in the child care system, and she gets light of a case that maybe could mean something bigger, but she's not entirely sure. And then we have another one, we're following a little girl. I can't remember exactly what the name is off the top of my head, and she is going through something horrific. And so we're seeing from both perspectives. And I think it was in first person. I think I could probably distance myself from this classical sailing, but when you hear this classical person who does these voices for Heidi or whatever, and there's also a character in this book named Heidi, so I got really confused there for a minute, especially in the beginning. When you hear them say fuck, but also you hear them saying very politely. I don't know. It's just not what I was expecting, for one. 2, the audiobook is just kind of trash. Right now, it's balancing between a 2.5 and a 3. Because I think the writing's pretty good. I just think everything else is not working for me. And once again, I have a feeling I would love... I don't know if I love it. I think it'd be a 3.5 to a 4 if I was reading it physically. And sometimes that's what happens when you listen to an audiobook of something. It can diminish your value or your fondness of the novel. It's definitely one of those. I'm gonna go finish it while I do some extra little chores and stuff, but yeah, it's rough. So coming in here to give you guys the final update for No Child of Mine by Suzanne Lewis. I finished it a little earlier today. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. I don't think I'm gonna recommend it to a lot of different people. I can understand why this is one of my sister's favorite books of all time. I respect for what it is. It just didn't really work for me on a lot of different levels. Alex as a main character, I found as the book went on, her unlikable qualities just continued to shine and didn't really make for a very intriguing and great main character to follow. I think but the tip side here is that I don't think I would have changed Alex as a character to make her any more likable as a person, because I don't think a more likable person could do what the ending does. I think that has to be very much Alex. I think Alex could be the only one to do that as well. So I think as a character, she really works for the story, even if personally she doesn't work for me. I write unlikable characters as much as anybody else writes unlikable characters. It just comes across. And normally, to be fair, you don't even know you're writing an unlikable character until someone tells you, hey, this is an unlikable character. Ollie as a character was extremely sad, and part of the reason why it would be a hard recommendation for, just because Ollie as a character she goes through so much throughout this entire story, and I don't even know personally if if I think the ending is really fitting. Very interestingly enough, the ending, I know part of the reason why my sister really loves this book and loves this trilogy, and I know spoilers for books 2, I don't know any spoilers for book 3 because she just read it here recently, so I don't have anything for you on that one. I don't think I would pick up a sequel for No Child of Mine, but I am happy that I read it, and I'm happy that I get to talk to her about it and have a much more fuller conversation about it. And I think it was a little bit too long. I think it could have added some editing elements to it, and I think there was probably one or two many subplots, but overall it was very well done for what it was. I looked up some reviews because it does have to do with Child Protective Services, and that doesn't seem like it really went well for a lot of people if you're in that same branch or from that same branch. But overall, as a fiction story, it worked. Just wasn't my favorite thing in the entire world. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap up this video because that is the 5th book. Thank God I'm over this video. I've been reading these books for so long, 4 or 5 months. I've been going through them. So first things first, I think the first book I read for this one was the first one. I don't really remember. Hold on. The first one that I picked up was Evil Geniuses. I guess I've only been reading these for 2 months. Doing this video for Evil Geniuses, which I ended up giving a 4. By far one of my favorite books I read this month. Recommended to me obviously by my beautiful fiance. I absolutely love him, and I completely understand why this was his choice. Wasn't his first choice, but was a choice that I would see here. Then I read Hedi. I don't know who wrote Hedi. I cannot think of. It looks like Joanna something wrote Hedi. I gave Hedi, I think, a solid like 3.5, somewhere in there. I don't think it was a 4. Heidi is a cute story. I recommend it for people who are trying to find classics to read to their kid. I think it fits. It ended up really hurting a book in this catalog that I read, but like ultimately it was a good read. I wouldn't read it again, and I did find quite a bit of it boring as an adult, but it's a good children's read. Then I read November 9. November 9 was like a 1.5. Definitely probably the worst book on this list. If you can get over the toxic traits in Toxic Story, I think you could probably find enjoyment in it. It is Colleen Hoover, and her writing just isn't for me. And I find that people who are writers, their writing isn't for them. Her writing isn't for them. But people who are not writers, I do find that they tend to like her story more. I don't see myself picking up any more Colleen Hoovers unless it truly is like groundbreaking or I have such interest in it for some whatever reason. Then I read Fable by Adrienne Young, which is by far, I'd say this and Evil Geniuses were the 2 favorites for the video, just because it most in line with my actual liking of story instead of like other things. Like this was a pure recommendation from a old coworker of mine who I absolutely adore, and I'm grateful for it because I definitely will be reading the sequel even if I didn't love every aspect of this book. Then I read No Child of Mine, which was recommended by my sister, and I'm giving it, like I said, like a 3.5 because the writing was good for the most part. I think the characters were well rounded, but ultimately just didn't work for me, which is fine. That means this video came out with 0 5 stars. 5 books recommended to me by people that I love. That's all that matters, right? I'll see you guys all next time for another beautiful video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.